What's up, everyone? This is Roscoe here. I have a very special guest that you guys may not be familiar with. A man who goes by many names, formerly known as E-Train with the letters, Blazing Kicking Chicken for long, BKC for short, Logan 37. How are you doing, man?
I'm good, man. I can't wait until we explain the origin of the name 37.
It's definitely gonna come up at some point
Mhm.
within this entire discussion. And we'll just start with kind of, I'm sure you've alluded to it in some of your videos, but
Mhm.
how did you get started in the game?
All right, so some people might know this because I love to talk about myself all the time. But for those for those who don't, then I got started in competitive Pokemon because, like all of us, then I was obsessed with the games as a kid, and then I thought it stopped being cool because, to quote Mean Girls, Pokemon was social suicide in middle school. But then I met a buddy of mine who I'm still friends with today, who was like, "Hey, are you into Pokemon?" And I was like, "Yeah, I used to be," because that's a safe answer, right? So and he's like, "Yeah, I've been getting into Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. It's really cool." So I go home and look it up, and of course I get the bug again. So I wound up looking on the internet on YouTube, which was new at the time because I'm old, and I found this guy named Pokemaster Emil who was doing his Elite Four challenges with his overpowered Empoleon, and then I found Marilyn, who I'm sure everyone knows, but he had this game against a guy named Untouchable, and if you haven't seen it, then it's pretty much the battle that inspired a million other Gen 4 players. Because a lot of people, once they beat the Elite Four enough times, they're like, well, what do I do now? And Gen 4 brought a lot of people to online battling because, you can just play other people with your in game team on Wi Fi. So I got started there, especially once I saw that he finished his opponent off with the Rattata. So I wanted to get started right then and there, right? But I was 11, and this was the fall of 2007, and I still had another year and a half before I was COPPA legal, and I took that shit so serious. I was so scared because there are people on Smogan, like PDC being the most famous example. He was on there before 13, and he got banned until he was 13 for legal reasons. He didn't give a fuck, but I was so scared that I would get like arrested for having a Gmail account or something. So I waited, and during that time, I watched a lot of YouTube Wi-Fi battles, like all the old guys, like Zelda Master Timmy and the Shadow Project and Yuki Jaden Survives and MTG Xerxes, of course.
Of course.
And uh, and then for my 12th birthday, I got a DS and Pokemon Diamond. I played the shit out of that game. I was in my time watching a new generation roll in, over and over and over. I always see the new guys that come in with that generation, and they're like, "Yeah, this is my baby. This is my generation." And I was like, I remember that feeling very well. Of course, it's way in the past because I'm old, but I played the hell out of that game, and I got very well acquainted with each and every Gen 4 Pokemon. I was so proud of myself for figuring out that once I saw the toxic spikes, that if they laid down a second layer, then you would get badly poisoned. And I was right. And I was the smartest 12-year-old I knew. And then a year later, I was finally COPPA legal, so I made a YouTube account under the name Blaze Kickin' Chicken. I don't know why. Blaziken's not even my favorite Pokemon, but I thought it sounded funny. So I had some I had some other names lined up. We won't go into those. They were really bad because I was 12. Uh,
It
all
happens.
all I'll say is that they were. One of them was inspired by Maryland Salamence because Salamence is actually my favorite Pokemon. So then I started on YouTube Wi-Fi battling, and I think I was pretty good to start out. I mean, I wasn't good, but like I got a good sense for the game. And the thing that was holding me back more than anything else was I was so excited to play. I didn't have the patience to get good Pokemon. Like I used a Gliscor with a lax nature because it boosts defense, and and I was like, you know what? I don't care that it loses out on special defense. Good enough. I just want to get in there and play. I used a Starmie without natural cure. I was like, who needs to start off toxic? And so, dumb shit like that. And right now on the screen we have a bunch of old Wi-Fi battles from when I was really young. They get progressively better as I got an action replay and started giving myself fully EV'd Pokemon and stuff. So yeah, those were the days. And then, a bunch of stuff happened. A year passes, and I'm looking for, strongest competition. And for anyone who remembers Maryland's Wi-Fi battles, then he goes, in all the descriptions, we all think he's a genius, and he goes, I'm not very good. If you want good battlers, go to Smogon. And in the Gen 4 days, you remember this, of course, that Smogon was the devil, and nobody wanted to play against Scar and Bliss Crest, and everyone hated Scizor, and it was cheap, and Rotom forms were cheap, and other stuff like that. So
times have changed.
Yeah. And so then eventually I was like, well, Maryland, people aren't that good. I mean, for Wi-Fi anyway. Maryland, GameFAQs, Cerebi, wherever I could find a battle. And then it wasn't that good, so I went over to Smogon and the Wi-Fi section to try and find the best players. And I remember my first game, and the guy led off with a Scyther, and I was like, really? This is... Because that was when I was starting to use OU Pokemon, right? Because I learned eventually that not all Pokemon are created equal, in the competitive sense, of course. And, that as much as you want to believe I can just play better, sometimes you're going to be facing better Pokemon and you're going to lose because of it. And that's, a waste. So, is my audio still working? Yeah, it is. Thank God. All right. So,
Okay.
Yeah, so then
I think it's kind of interesting.
Sorry, say it again.
No, I thought you were done, but go on. I'll ask after.
It was just turns out that the best players on Smogon were not in the Wi-Fi section, and I had to actually pull up the simulators. And because I was 13 and 14, I was like, I don't want to play on these simulators. There's no visual stimulation here. I can barely follow what's going on. So I preferred my Wi-Fi battles, but eventually once I got on Smogon, I wanted to play some tournaments, and so I moved over to the simulators, and it was helpful that around that time then they were moving to Pokemon Online, which is a lot easier which is by now is a relic. I mean, Showdown, for anyone who's only ever had Showdown, you have no idea how good you have it, because those old simulators could be hard to follow sometimes. But Pokemon Online was a big step up in terms of being easy to follow. So then I got into the simulators and the tournament scene, and 10 years later, here I am, still getting angry at crits and T-Bolt paras, because some things never change.
I know. It was funny that you mentioned that you were talking about that you used to kind of be in a rush back then, and I think reflecting now back on things is that like the ability was always there, and it just probably was that thing that was missing. Because when you think about it, and we'll kind of talk about it more like in our next question, that once you got it, you kind of got it. Was there a point where, like, I guess kind of tying into the next question, like where was the point where you realized like got it, like like I'm gonna be here for a while?
Well, I don't know, because if you ask some people, then I never had it. But and I continue to not have it today. But I think the part where I realized I had something. God, this makes me sound like the most self-important person ever, which I am. So I realized I knew I was doing something right. I made mistakes all over the place, like everyone does. But I realized I was doing something right when I was winning against OU Pokemon with not so good Pokemon, and then I started actually using OUs myself, and I was like, wow, these battles just got so much easier. Like I used to use one of my favorite teams ever is this stupid all BL or UU team with the lead Crobat with Wide Lens and Hypnosis, Registeel, Cresselia, Nidoking, Blaziken, Specs, Raikou. And it wasn't good at all, obviously. But I was beating teams with Vaporeon and Celebi. Yeah, Gen 4 OU staples from 10 years ago that now are never seen. But I was beating teams with them and Scizor. My Cresselia was offensive with Charge Beam and HP Fire, so it destroyed Scizor. And then I remember like a couple months later, I made a team with Lead Machamp, which was all the rage back then, Stealth Rocking Blissey, and Skarm. And suddenly, I just had so much more freedom to play the game, and I was like, "Wow! Now I get why people spam these Pokemon." So it was always telling me like that's why I've sometimes struggled because I use fucking garbage half the time. A habit which is tough to kick because I get sentimental a lot. I love hard, and I used to. Nowadays I tend to be overly harsh. Like I'll be quicker to dismiss something as unviable, way quicker than I'll say, yeah, that can work if it's not standard. Not that not standard can't work, but I have a higher threshold because I know from years of trying to make Mismagius work in OU that you are doing yourself a disservice. So now, of course, Mismagius worked in the Wi-Fi OU metagame because people were bound to not spam your Scarftar semi-stall that you were going to face on the simulator, so it was kind of a different ballpark. But I always had to kick the urge to use something because I like the Pokemon. I love very hard, and I'm a huge fan of Mismagius. Every time I played through Diamond, I had to have it on the team. So, and in terms of when other people thought I had it, most people knew me initially for my rating in the RMT forum, which is not. It used to be a huge deal. On Smogon, it used to be. So I love the phrase "it used to be" because it makes it sound like it used to be better. It wasn't better, just different. Better and worse in different ways, obviously. Point being that in the RMT forum, that was where a lot of competitive, like the top players, posted all the time, and nowadays you don't really get that at all. And people knew me from trying to get a Team Raider badge through there, and I would suggest Jellicent on every team because spin blocking is good. And Jellicent is awesome, so I used it on all my teams, and it was so good, and I would just like, why isn't everyone else using this? They wanted their offensive Pokemon, or why use Terrakion when you can use Jellicent was my thinking. But so I stumbled through that, and then eventually I started having some ladder and tournament success. I guess because the community was a lot smaller back then. I mean, it wasn't tiny, but it was a lot more insular, I guess. So, like, if someone was on the top of the ladder, people would be like, whoa, I wonder who that guy is. Whereas nowadays, I'm sure that still exists, but in terms of modern Smogon tournaments, that isn't looked at as much. So I got some ladder success, and then I started doing well in some smaller tournaments. And then my big break came in the span of a couple weeks when I finally reached number 1 on the ladder in early 2012 with my trusty Rain team with Azumarill. There's an RMT of that in the RMT archive. The greatest team of all time. Roscoe, you of course remember when we would play test games, and because you would always use Celebi, Rotom, Sand, and my Ferrothorn gets rocks and spikes in the first couple turns, and it looks like I'm losing the whole game, and then Rotom and Celebi are at like half health before hazards, and then Azumarill clicks Aqua Jet 6 times and the game is over.
Dude.
That's how every single game went. That was why I love that team so much. Yeah, I have attachment to a lot of teams, but that one was great because Volt Turn, because of, remember Sir Azelf? Or Dark Azelf? The guy, he single-handedly invented Scizor and Rotom U-turning and Volt switching back and forth. He was number 1 on ladder for like a month straight, which was ridiculous. He was leaps and bounds ahead of everyone else. So then, even though Excadrill was banned, everyone else was using it because it was still a ridiculous style. And I was like, you know what? I want to use Rain offense. I think I saw Iconic using it, and I decided to try Azumarill. And it was so wonderful because the first half of the game would be Ferrothorn gets up hazard and the opposing Terrakion kills half my shit. And the end is always Azumarill Aqua Jets through everything. It was wonderful. So that team took me to the top of the ladder, and then I got drafted at midseason for SPL by the Scooters, who were managed by Atticus, and I met a lot of important people there. I think Blue Star was telling them, like, guys, we got to get BKC. He's number 1 on the ladder right now. And everyone was like, really? That's like a 15-year-old kid, and he's annoying as fuck. Because I was. And but they took a chance on me, and I ended up going 3-1, including a win with our season on the line in the semis against McMegan, who was the next Earthworm. That's what McMegan is to me. Yeah. He's the next Earthworm to, people nowadays. He's like that old guy who's, won some stuff a long time ago, and Anyway, so
still doing it.
Yeah, that was and then ever since there, people were like, okay, so now he's like a mainstay of the tournament. And then later that year, I made finals of Smogon Tour. So people were like, oh, he's a tournament player. It's like, oh, now he's one of the better tournament players. So. And that was pretty much how I got established, and I've had many ups and downs since then.
Yeah, I've never even asked you this as much as we've obviously talked for many years. So after having such a good individual year like that, in terms of 3-1, making the finals, what made you decide to manage in the next SPL?
Oh, okay. This is a culture. Yeah. All right. So. I'm known for, my influence on the competitive Pokemon scene. You can hear me pushing my glasses up my nose. But I'm also known as being a really bad manager. Something I'm working on, actually, because I would like it again. But I'll explain it with culture change. So back then there was this aura of the cool players going, oh, I just want to win a trophy and quit. Oh, I want to get out of this game as soon as I can. Because I don't know where it came from. Maybe it was, internalized. Pokemon is for kids and I'm wasting my life. Nowadays, I don't think that at all. I think it's a great game. It's a lot of fun. It can be really good for you. Obviously, some people use it as a platform to be dicks, but, that's going to happen everywhere in life, so it comes with the territory. And so I was in that mindset too. I wanted to quit, quote unquote, at the end of 2013 after I won my first Smogon Tour. And I figured, since I liked being around, because we like online competitive Pokemon, because it's a social platform as well as a place for our intelligence, or lack thereof, to show. And I was like, all right, so now it's time for me to quit, quote unquote, because that's what all the good players talked about doing. That's what Blue Wind and Crack and whoever else I can remember who was good in the tournament scene talked about winning a trophy and then quitting. I don't think anyone I remember from back then just ever won and quit. Maybe Zach91, but other than that, that was very much the exception rather than the rule. So I had that in my head, because I wanted to follow the cool guys. So I decided to manage, and it was disastrous, mainly because I just didn't get drafting. I've always thought I was a good captain in terms of handling players and helping them out with getting ready for games and stuff, but in terms of actual drafting, I was fucking disastrous. So in a way, I guess now that I think about it, you could see it as the beginning of my Wi-Fi battling career, where I was playing pretty well, but I was using junk, and I was managing my team well, but my drafting choices were subpar. And now I think I have a much better grasp of it. I've been practicing a lot in various side tournaments, so who knows, maybe the future, that's what I'm hoping for in the future, as I finally ease off of playing but still wanting to be around. And I think I can do a lot more as a manager than as a player, because we'll get to the 37 thing later, I'm guessing, but when you go for a high amount of money as a player, then, you better have a near perfect record. And even then, you're influencing the rest of your team because they can't spend high in other places. So I think as a manager, it's the better move for me to try and win one of these big team tournaments as opposed to SPL, pretty much, because I don't know modern gen lower tiers, and I love SPL. So it's a better place for me to try and win than, trying to, going for a ridiculous price and trying to Superman my way to a perfect record and helping all my teammates out at the same time. More stress and not as effective. So I did some managing recently, and now I think I'm much better at it, drafting and the actual managing part. But I've had some serious gaffes in my day, to say the least. I'm famously a bad manager. I guess you could call me the Michael Jordan of Pokemon, because Michael Jordan I make Michael Jordan look like a great owner. He really
There's
knew what he
definitely
was doing compared to me. So
yeah, there's been some rough picks over the years, man.
I have good ideas, and then I just didn't understand the idea of valuing people as much as they should be valued. Someone who has a superb grasp of this is pretty much anyone who follows sports, and I stopped following sports when I got back into Pokemon, so that part just went over my head, and everyone else is like, this player for this much, and I'm like, yeah, what? I like this player. So yeah, and over the years I've grown less optimistic about the overall playing skill of your average player. Let me be fair, because that's not for me to say that everyone is bad and they can't win. SPL is a really unforgiving format. Best of one in Pokemon tends to suck. But I think there are a lot of players who are good, but for one reason or another they just can't win in SPL, and so I'm a lot harsher in that regard in terms of now, whereas I used to be the most optimistic guy on the planet. Like, yeah, our super outmatched team is just going to cruise to the trophy, right?
Oh God.
Nowadays, I had how many tournaments like that because I just didn't get it. Now I really get it. So much so that I'm a little too harsh. But I would rather do that than be a little over-optimistic. So anyway, so yeah, that is why I decided to manage. And yeah, there were a lot of fiascos in that department.
Yeah, it could be like a 10-hour video if we talk about all those.
Top 10 worst draft mistakes from BKC, and like 9 of them are all in the same tournament.
Dude.
Remember Gene? Why the fuck did I get Gene?
The good thing, the funniest part about that, I was actually talking to John about that maybe like 2 weeks ago or so. Because it was funny because we drafted him, and then like John traded him like right after the draft, and then he posted it in the thread, and then you were like, yeah, I guess.
I went AFK after the SPL 7 draft. Oh, Jesus, fuck, I butchered that team. I went AFK after that draft, and, because I got Gene. And this is actually a perfect example. Gene, or G80, is one of the best advanced players to ever play. He was a legend in every sense of the word. Modern advanced players might not know him, but back in the day, he was as good as you get. And he actually came back in the first SPL and led the Scooters to a championship. And anyway, point being that he hadn't really played for years, and at that point he was signing up to be with his buddies more so than seriously compete. And that's why the Sharks made an offer for him. And I was like, oh yeah, Gene will be great. And so that's a perfect example of me not seeing the bigger picture. I don't take full credit for butchering SPL 7, even though that was, fucking horrible. But I think I think Jirachi had a great tour. He was playing terrific. That first week against Sweepage was one of the best things I've ever seen. And his game against Marth later that season. So we had some really good moments. And X-Ray was an MVP. But the problem was that I drafted the 2 best OU players at the time, which for Oris, that was Cosine 180 and X-Ray. And X-Ray was great. But Cosine had developed a Tag Pro addiction, which I was not aware of. And so he spent...
But everyone else...
Sorry?
But everyone else was, apparently.
Not everyone else, but like a couple people in his friend group, like Shake and Tasung, were like, hey, Kev, you know that he's been playing Tag Pro 8 hours a day, right? And, this is 4 years ago, so I'm not mad at him anymore. But, I was really mad at the time, especially because he came back telling me he was volunteering at some fucking disabled children's hospital or something, which would be nice if it were true. But then I was like, dude, I can see the Tag Pro leaderboard. You are on it. It logs your playtime. So, and he had a bad tournament, and so we fell apart. And then the most fucking infuriating thing, Cosine was a great guy. I just want to say that now in case he's listening, and for anyone, he was a great guy. He was a great player. But that tournament really drove me crazy, especially because literally like a month or 2 months after that whole SPL fiasco, he's in the finals of Smogon Tour. And I'm like, how the fuck did you do this? So
Man.
if he hadn't if he had won that, I might have just gone insane. But CL won because CL is great. So yeah, for that tournament, I only take partial credit for butchering it. But the first snake, Jesus Christ, what a
oh my God, another man. That team was so bad that I think I was in the server the whole season and I never said anything.
I think you said hey, and that was like it. Yeah, we had no chemistry. We just weren't performing. We had some okay moments. One out of however many weeks. And that was another great example of me not understanding value. Like, this was when I'm So Sorry Lol was a new player. And you know what? In classic player drafted by BKC fashion, he became a top OU player going to the furthest depths of OST and succeeding in every other tournament after he made me look like an idiot for drafting him in Snake. I guess the problem wasn't that I drafted him as much as I drafted him in round 7. And it was because he was making waves at the time. He had Aurora Veil team, which was a big deal. It was sweeping the ladder and other stuff. And OLT, yeah, he was succeeding in that. And I was like, yeah, of course I want to get this guy. He's a current OU player. And I drafted him too early because I just didn't get value and that kind of thing. And it ended up being a disaster. And so Snake One was probably my worst gaffe. And the other horrible tournament I had was SPL 5 was good mainly because Sweepage took the reins at mid-season and helped us make a bunch of deals, and that made our team really good in the second half. And we just missed out in the last week, which was a shame. But yeah, so that was proof that the managing part I was good at, the drafting part fucking abysmal. So. Yeah.
Yeah, that SPL in particular kind of makes you wish that the regular season was 10 weeks. You just needed one more week.
It would have been perfect. And sometimes nowadays, Finchinator recently said something that struck with me. He said I don't want to manage through my prime, and I don't think I managed through my prime, but I managed through some good years. Let's just put it like that. Just because of that whole culture thing about, you have to retire as soon as you win something. Even like months after I was supposedly retired, there was one cool tournament after another. There was a bunch of tournaments with DPP Ubers, a tier which I fucking love. So, of course, I signed up for all of those and, every small little thing. So, I was retired, air quotes, for about, call it little under 2 years, and then I was like, okay, I don't have to pretend anymore. I'm not some retired player coming back from World Cup. I just like playing. So I eventually grew up enough to admit that to myself. This
is a really hard game to quit, dude.
I know.
It's a really hard game.
I know. I mean, until recently, I've never even taken what you could consider a break from playing. Because even during my retired phase, I was playing all the time. So.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's hard, man, because especially I think what makes it the hardest is that there's just you meet so many people throughout the years that you can't fully quit because you're still connected to people that play and stuff.
Exactly. So, everyone who comes to play online Pokemon has the same story. It's I came for the Pokemon, I stayed for the people. And when you're hanging out with your friends on Discord, or if you're old, then Skype and IRC. And talking to them every day, even if you're not playing so much, they're going to be talking about Pokemon because they're playing. They're going to be linking battles or pre-showdown saying battle on this server. Manually go find it yourself, and you're going to eventually get the itch, from because it's infectious, it's contagious, and especially when people say, "Come on, man, you should play again." I used to do this so much. I'm personally responsible for dragging Philip 7086 back to at least 3 official tournaments, at least. just because I would pester him on Facebook, like, "Hey Phil, you should really play this tournament," and then he did. So, yeah. So, and then eventually that will happen to most other people who have, as I've observed over the years, everyone will quit. Like, the furthest extent of a quit I ever had, which you'll remember, is 9 years ago when the black and white ladder would just drive me insane, and I would get crit and one thing or another, and I would uninstall PO only to reinstall it like 30 minutes later.
Dude, it's that thing, crazily enough though, while that was the most frustrating period of like the ladder era, I feel like that was also probably like the most fun ladder era that I
there was nothing at stake other than to just play a lot and get up higher, and there was no because nowadays half the reason I picked up Wi-Fi again and have been searching for battles, hit me up on Discord, is because I was just trying to really enjoy the game again. Now, like, I really do or have enjoyed tournaments before. Optimizing the metagame and your teams and your plays is a blast. Obviously, it can be really intellectually stimulating if you want to use such an expression. But at the same time, sometimes it can really take a lot out of you. It just stops being fun as much. So our process on the ladder was, hey, you got a new team? Yeah, I got a new team. Send it. Okay, I got a game. That simple. Nowadays for tournaments, you got to prepare. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. If someone on my team didn't prepare and just winged it and fucked it up for that reason, I would be mad. Because, other people are depending on you, so you want to give it your best effort. But, eventually that can really wear on you, and this is a hobby. So while that kind of Pokemon can be fun, then sometimes you got to remember that, we are doing this for fun in the first place. So as, I've been very bad about, as soon as it becomes a chore, then stop. Because, when you get on ladder and you start getting mad, you got to play more and more, which of course makes you do worse and worse. And that will never change. Because today I laddered for the Magearna suspect in Sword and Shield. I don't know why. Maybe I was overtaken by nostalgia and I just wanted to participate in one. And I can make a video out of it, which is helpful. But I really just wanted to play on the ladder again, the modern ladder, and participate in the suspect test. And even then, I was getting tilted and angry, and I did not step away. I mean, you would think that with 11 years of competitive Pokemon experience, then I would know by now, tilting makes it all worse, but you can't. You can't get away. You're like, I need to get the points back. And even when you get the points back, you're like, okay, I'll step away. Never mind, I gotta get another one. And another one. And
I gotta get
it's the worst. So anyone who's watching me rage in my ladder videos knows just how bad it can get. Like, this, of course, when I'll say, okay, I'm gonna stop at, like, the 2-hour mark. And then 3 hours later, I'm still going strong. That was a really good
at like 50 minutes.
Yeah, so tilting was bad. But back then, at least there was nothing really on the line. And with ladder, and even like the ladder videos where I'm raging and screaming at Will-O-Wisp accuracy and whatever it is, then at least, there's nothing really on the line. It's it really is just for fun. You can step away and you haven't ruined your reputation because you had a bad tournament game. People aren't going to be sneering at you because you forgot that Stealth Rock does 6% to Machamp instead of 12%, which I actually did in a big tournament game a couple of years ago. It didn't cost me, but it almost cost me, and I was like, I can't believe I just did that. So, that was with years of experience. So sometimes we just have brain farts. It's a matter of making sure you have them as little as possible, like, I guess with the whole being harsh thing, you could say that, if you have a brain fart once a tournament, fine. But if you have a brain fart every game in the tournament, then it's something, that's sort of the difference. So yeah. The black and white ladder was great. Do you remember when Dream World abilities were allowed on the ladder? And and so you could use like Shadow Tag Chandelure and shit, even though it wasn't released. God. And
like when it first started, right?
Yeah, I was playing Taylor, and I had been getting hacked all all morning. Well, actually morning, because back then, Smogan has always been a very Eastern America centered. That's when all the action happens, and I was in the Czech Republic, so I was 6 hours ahead. So I'd wake up really early in the morning rather than stay up really late, because my parents would be like, "Yeah, of course you can get up early." No parent is ever saying, "Hey, you can't get up that early. That's ridiculous." But they are saying, "Don't stay up that late." So I'd been getting hacked all morning, and and right now, or at this period, then if someone was using a Dreamworld ability they weren't supposed to, something unreleased like Shadow Tag Chandelure, then you were supposed to message a moderator and say, "Hey, this guy in my battle is using an unreleased ability," just until they fixed it. And then what happened was that Taylor, I was playing Taylor. Sorry, I think my Discord audio is messing up. You still here? Oh, god damn it. Alright, so I'll just keep telling the story. So, Taylor was using... Actually, he wasn't using anything wrong. But I was... Alright, you back?
Yeah, did I disconnect?
Yeah, well, one of us did.
Oh, my bad.
Anyway,
okay, my bad.
So I just stumbled over my words a bunch. But the story being that, if you were supposed to message a mod if someone was using an unreleased Dreamworld ability. And so I was playing Taylor, and I was about to win. Like I'm talking, he has to crit. He has one opportunity to crit at the end of the game, otherwise I win. That kind of I had it won. Not I had to hit 5 focus blasts to win, had it won. But he ended up critting my extra drill with Scizor or something ridiculous, and I was so angry that and I was also 15, so rather than just accept the loss and move on to the next one, I messaged him on and said he was using Shadow Tag Chandelure, and he got kicked and I got the points, and then I got in trouble for it because obviously I got in trouble for it. But yeah, I didn't have a great reputation when I was 15 because, of course, I was 15. So,
right.
Yeah, but that was one of the best moments. Looking back at it 9 years later, one of the best moments on the black and white ladder.
Totally.
9 years ago.
And while we're on memory lane, what would you say are just some of your favorite competitive Mons memories over the years? Because you've been in a bevy of tournaments.
A bevy of tournaments, indeed. Okay, well, I'm going to start from the beginning. So before I ever played in a tournament, my first tournament was actually a good memory. That was a King Daddy D-Max tournament. So this was like over the course of several months in early, mid-2010. I remember several games in that period. My first round game was the first time I ever used Wish Calm Mind Jirachi, which was a big deal at the time. You had lots of Taunt Gliscors, Rest Hawk Rotoms, Taunt Skarmory, Scarf Tars, and Wish Calm Mind Rachis. And it was the first time I used it. I was using some T-Spike's offense team, and I must have not gotten the T-Spikes down or something, because I remember being really annoyed facing a Blissey, and then it comes into my Wish Calm Mind Jirachi, and I slowly realized, wait, I beat this thing one-on-one. I set up on this all day, and I swept him with it. And so that was a good one. And then I just made my way through the rounds. And then around 4 or 5, I matched up against MML Frosty Pixie, known as Sasha, who was, not to cause slander, 10 years after the fact, but she was a controversial figure in the competitive scene. And
leave it there.
Yeah, I used a team with. I still remember the team to this day. One of my biggest regrets in life, usually my Pokemon regrets are very, very separated from my real life regrets, but deleting my old YouTube channel is definitely up there on the list of real life regrets. Tournaments, yes. Okay, so I fucked up in a tour final, whatever. That's still separate from real life, but, deleting my old YouTube channel, nuh-uh, that goes up there. So, that goes up there with every girl I ever didn't believe in myself to get. Probably worse than that, in fact. Because that would have been temporary. The YouTube channel would have been forever. That aside, so against Frosty Pixie, I break YouTube etiquette, and I bring a team with Skarmbliss. And, of course, I have a big advantage, because a lot of Wi-Fi teams weren't very good against Skarmbliss. So I didn't win entirely because of it, but I won, and I revealed only 5 Pokemon. And she was mad because Scar and Bliss, and that was in 2010. You probably remember this. The summer of 2010 was when most of the YouTube Wi-Fi community was moving towards like the actual metagame. So bitching about stall became less and less of a thing. But there were still always going to be people who were like, Blissey, ugh. So
dude. Remember when remember when people were super against Scizor with Swords Dance, BP, and Life Orb?
That was the most broken combo. Even though it wasn't a very good Scizor set, everyone was like, dude, it's so strong. It's a priority attack with Technician and Life Orb and Swords Dance. What the fuck? Even though everyone was using Choice Band, but
exactly.
I remember the first time I used a Life Orb Scizor, I O-code an Alakazam. I won the game because I O-code an Alakazam after Stealth Rock with Life Orb Bullet Punch, and immediately after I apologized to my opponent for using such a cheap Pokemon. So that's the kind of place I come from. So speaking of Scizor, actually, there was controversy about that battle, not just because LOL Scar and Bliss, but because Frosty Pixie got really angry at me because she asked what my... In retrospect, this is the stupidest fucking thing ever. And I mean, even in terms of online YouTube Wi-Fi battling shit, this was fucking dumb. She asked me what my last was. The Pokemon I revealed were Machamp, Blissey, Skarmory, Scarfrotum, Wash, and Breloom. And my last was a Choice Band Scizor, which was unrevealed. And I told her the last was Choice Band Scizor. And I don't know how she got this idea in my head, and I swear it's true. She accused me of stealing her Choice Band Scizor spread, which I think she made for Ubers or something, because she was saying it had a lot of special defense. And I don't know how she got this idea, because I never revealed it in the battle, and obviously no one knew that she had a special Scizor spread, but she was getting really mad at me for it, and I made a whole video defending myself.
I don't remember that.
It wasn't one of my more popular ones, but people were like, wow, you're very, very logical. Very true. Good work, man. Way to defend yourself against YouTube Pokemon tyranny. But, so it became kind of a joke. It's like, motherfucker stole my Scizor spread. Scizor did have a Choice Band spread for Ubers because it has to take super strong Draco Meteors, but... Yeah, and then that was round 4 or 5, and then I wound up winning the entire tournament. That was my first tournament I won, so that was a big one. In general, most of the YouTube Wi-Fi battles I had, just for the fun of it, one-off. Like nowadays, with how easily you can have battles and just spam battles, then any one battle is not really a special event most of the time, because even like a big tournament matchup, a big tournament one-on-one, then those are usually best of whatevers as opposed to one battle. Now competitively, obviously best of 3 and higher is better for Pokemon, but there's just the coolness of best of 1, especially for a Wi-Fi battle. Like, do you remember Xerxes versus Dangerous 36M?
Of course, that's a classic.
Anyone who hasn't seen that even if you might think, oh, 2 YouTube Wi-Fi guys from 2010. Let me tell you, they knew the score. They were playing some real Gen 4 over there. And that one-off one game, I thought it was awesome. Everyone poured their all into one game. Obviously, it's not the most ideal thing, but I really like those. And just most of the Wi-Fi stuff I really loved. Like, I remember I had this game against what was his name? No, I forget. We'll just save time. I'll just say most of the Wi-Fi stuff. I really love that, and that's why I'm coming back to it now. Just I don't even care if I lose every single Wi-Fi game. I obviously I care a little, but as long as I get to see the animations and throw a song onto it that I have to upload to Vimeo because I don't want to get copyright stricken, then I'll be content. Back in the day, narrations were not everywhere like they are now. And do you remember Quandao Ren 66 or Elo?
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
In a way, he was a pioneer because he was the first guy putting his face on the screen at the same time as his battle. And nowadays, whenever I look up like a modern Wi-Fi battle, then I'm like, wow, everyone does this shit now. So he was ahead of the times. But, back then, everyone did the Maryland way, which was you record it with your webcam, you speed it up because the animations are slow, and you throw a cool song over it. So, yeah. Anyway, so back for competitive memories in the Smogan scene, which people are more familiar with. Like we said, the laddering thing in black and white. At the time, it drove me fucking crazy, but looking back on it, it was
so fun.
Whenever I think about, those poor teenagers who are off, doing heroin and God knows what, then I'm just like, what, that wasn't so bad. That was actually pretty fun.
Right, it worked out.
It could have been a lot worse. So there was that. Remember end of 2010, early 2011, when Smogan had just set up their server on PO, and Symphony X64 or Ben was #1 on the Gen 4 ladder, and a lot of good players were still playing on it then, even though it wasn't as competitive as the main shoddy ladder. But he was #1 for like months on end, and I got to #2 several times, and maybe people were noticing, I don't know, but I remember this one night I was closing in on him, and he was freaking out. He was messaging you and some other guy, I forget, probably Josh or someone. He was messaging like, "Oh my God, how is he winning? He's gonna overtake me." Because he got his account up to #1 and just parked it, never touched it again. So, and then I probably got hacks or something, and yeah, that's probably what happened. Yeah. And or I just faced a Subaru Zapdos because Rat Cheesy's team, the Eternal CB Azelf, really hate that Zapdos. So then there was laddering, and it got better. Oh, Clan Wars on Purple Surge and IRC. I still remember. I only played like 4 of those games, but I still remember like every single one. Freakishly, I don't know how, but I do. And I, of course, remember monstrosities like Cool Trainer Alex versus MetaBeast. And so I think MetaBeast was Gliscor passing Alex, and as he passed out like +4 attack, +2 speed to a Lucario, and Alex's Swampert froze it, and MetaBeast was so mad. Because they were constantly at each other's throats, some real rivalries, and yeah, that was a blast. Once we get into so we're getting into more recognizable territory now, so like laddering and stuff, and into tournaments, of course. So the getting to #1 for the first time, that was a big one. On my old computer, I still have the screenshot and the battle log of the game that got me to #1. I remember you in particular at the very end when it was looking like I was about to win. You were like, "I got the screenshot ready just in case someone else overtook it." But back then, you were #1 on that ladder. You were the king of the server, so that was a good time. And then, of course, my first SPL, which is what fueled the whole "come for the Pokemon, stay for the people" thing that's been going on for the last 8 years, because that was really a blast. I got to hang around with some older people. That I think has been an advantage for a lot of people on Smogan, in that you get to hang out with but like if you're a high schooler like I was, you get to hang out with a bunch of adults, college people and even beyond, and compared to your peers, you suddenly become very mature. Or at least you think you are, but I think that was a good experience. That tournament in SPL 3, next SPL is going to be 12, and 3 was my first real one, and that's where I met guys like Ace Matador, Frankie, who quit right after, which is a shame. Atticus, of course. I beat Atticus in a tryout prior to the initial SPL auction. I clobbered him, and he didn't draft me, and I was like, what a dick. And then he just gets me at mid-season, so good enough. We had I'll move on to the next stuff in a second, but we also had the legendary advanced player Majin Tupacs, a German guy, who was, for a long time, anyone who would call him the best advanced player of all time, I would not have a problem with that. Maybe it's not as objectively true anymore, but, back then, absolutely. And He was a great player, and he went like 6-0 for us. But he also was super funny, and he was ready to always just get in the battle chat and fuck with someone. Like I think our Ubers player was Hugin Dugan, and he was playing Toph, and his Excadrill like +2 Shadow Claw crit a Giratina, and it missed a Will-O-Wisp or something ridiculous, and Toph's team was like restart, and Majin just comes out of nowhere swearing at them, and he had a lot of great quotes, but the one that I remember most was, "I will put restart in your ass," just because his English was not the most together. So I was like, wow, this guy's so cool. I didn't watch a lot of movies when I was 15 and 16, so my version of this guy's so cool. Most kids who are at that age, they watch Pulp Fiction and they go, wow, Sam Jackson is one cold motherfucker. And I was going, wow, Majin Tupac is one cold motherfucker. So yeah. Then I went on and obviously the first one, my first Smogon Tour I ever won, April 1st, 2012. That I don't think I'll ever forget. I remember that. You were there for it, and I beat Giga Punch in the final. And then
Oh, you mean the yeah. I remember that. Yeah. It was a
the live
black and white one, right?
Gen 4, and I was using my
Gen 4?
Subburst Arrow team. Yeah. It's still on YouTube
yeah.
actually. If someone wants to look it up, BKC versus Giga Punch, narrated by the one and only Somalia. And
so long ago, dude.
8 years and several months. So then there was, what the fuck was it? Oh yeah, so then I joined US East in a couple months later, and that was of course another great team tournament, just like SPL. Arguably even more fun because I knew I would be returning to those guys the next year. Yeah, and most of the year 2012 was pretty good for me, Pokemon wise. This isn't a traditional memory, but I was tutoring Funkasaurus, or South Park 66666. I think that's the right amount, from YouTube. And he went from, this old, used to play Wi-Fi on YouTube guy to winning a Smogon Tour against Kevin Garrett and Blue Wind in the finals and going 3-0 in World Cup. I was like, wow, I taught him. I must be doing something right. And we made a great team together, and yeah, I have a lot of attachment to my old teams. So mostly tour stuff. So then SPL 4 was actually a fucking disaster, so that one was not. But World Cup 2013 was amazing because we won, and I actually got to win the deciding game, which was big for me because we were against Mop's team, Asia, also known as Era Blackdoll. And Mop has always been a loud personality, and I was always intimidated by guys like him when I was first starting out on Smogon. And I remember he used to say that I was outright bad, like in public. He didn't hold anything back. Him and I think Schofield, but mostly just Mop. And there was someone else, but mostly Mop is what I remember. And I remember wanting to get better and win shit just to shut him the hell up. So obviously I don't hold him against him. That's just the kind of guy he was. And plus it's been 8 years. But yeah, to beat his team in that fashion was a pretty big deal for me. And then a couple months later, then I'd finally won Smogon Tour after coming up short the year prior. That was great. SPL, World Cup, most of those tournaments were pretty good. Had some lows in there. And then fast forward a couple of years to other SPLs and World Cups. But to this day, the single most fun team tournament I've ever had was SPL 8, which you were, of course, a part of. This is, I will debate anyone on this. This team was better than any team that has won SPL. I mean, okay, there are some that could, hold a candle. Like the SPL 9 Wolfpack were really unfair because Hansuki and Dexa decided to trade away ABR for peanuts. So they basically got ABR at way less than they ever should have. And I can't believe that trade went through, honestly. Their trades like that historically have been, vetoed, because it's like, no, this isn't fair. You can't get this player for this little. Like this past SPL when the Tyrants tried to trade Ojama for 5 players or 5 players for Ojama, and it was very clear, like, no, it's not fair. So anyway, but I still think the SPL 8 Raiders were the best team ever. we did not lose once in the regular season, and we went 8-0-1, which has yet to be beaten. And we lost in the semifinals. At first we thought, oh man, maybe we just got cocky. Turns out we were victims of the greatest cheating scandal in Smogan history. For those who don't know, then it was because a guy named Mazar, who I will never forgive for ruining this tournament for me, he was using a bot on Showdown to find people's teams, and then he wasn't just making counter teams. He knew people's exact team down to the EV spread, and he was running these perfect counter teams with literally unlosable matchups. And everyone was like, wow, how does he keep doing that over and over? And, he would just do, like, a perfect example. His semis game against Hack, he ran a substitute Swords Dance baton pass Blaziken against a Giratina he just miraculously knew would not have a roar. Or in the finals tiebreak rather, he kept switching Ho-Oh into a Swords Dance Primal Groudon. Oh yeah, I just know it doesn't have Stone Edge. Which was just fucking nonsensical. And so to find out that we didn't just get cocky, that we just got screwed over like that, was disappointing to say the least. But that tournament was so much fun, because we were doing so well, we were just dicking around the whole time. Everyone really gelled. We had a bunch of incredible records. And, the atmosphere was just fantastic. We didn't take ourselves too seriously. We would be annoying, only to each other mostly, for the most part. With the whole Jade and Ray and TDK and Sam dynamic.
It was a lot. I think a lot of the good came from that tournament. Like, I think
I can't believe how fun it is.
I just know so many of those people.
I still have that server. That server has been dead for years, and I haven't left it. I will never leave that Discord server. I should probably even ask someone to hand over the ownership of it to me, just so I can keep it alive forever. Right now it's just me and you, Auntie, TDK, Kingler, Starmie, Jade. More than I expected. Anyway, point is, I'm still in that because I love that tournament so much. And to this day, one of the hardest moments I've ever laughed in my life was... Alright, so time for an in-joke that I have to make an in-joke sound funny to everyone else. Okay, so our resident auntie, or Kratos Mana, loved to say... He had a lot of sayings, but one of his favorites was just, I'm gay. All lowercase. And he would just say it out of nowhere. We were all like, is he trying to tell us he's gay? We don't think so. But... He would just say it out of nowhere. Like, we would be saying, TDK would say, oh yeah, I like that team, it's good. And Auntie would say, yeah, I'm also really gay. So, stuff like that. And, if you're listening at work or something, or, around someone who doesn't like hearing unsavory things, I would advise you skip ahead a minute or so. Because one night we were just dicking around like we always did. And, Auntie was, I don't know how this image got into Jade's head, but he was like, imagine Auntie pounding Ray in the ass while saying I'm gay over and over. And I laughed so hard I actually cried. And that's not hyperbole. I never, laughed so hard I cried. I'm sure it's happened sometimes over the years, but not like a lot. So I was in actual tears. And then, hours later, this is also very graphic. Hours later, I go to the bathroom and I'm taking a leak, and the image of, that image of Auntie just doing that to Ray while saying I'm gay over and over again popped in my head, and I just started cracking the fuck up, and I sprayed everywhere. And, of course, I had to clean it off the toilet and the walls, but it was so worth it because it was so goddamn funny. And also because we had a bunch of artistes on the team, then... We had an artist depiction of an unfortunate young Mexican man representing Ray, receiving it from another man, who had Auntie's face photoshopped over it, and the younger guy was wearing a sombrero, also to represent Ray. So, yeah, that was the zenith of that season. I mean, we had a lot of great stuff. Like, we had what was his name? Oh, I feel bad now. The kid. Nader, who Case always bullied. Yeah, he was like 14. He was born in like 2001, and I thought that was gross. And now there are people on Smogan born in 2007, and I'm just like, why?
It's weird.
So,
Dude.
it's bizarre. But yeah, so basically that tournament was great. And then World Cup, as always, yada yada. Smoking Tour 22 was also great because it was the last DPP tour. I really liked that one. And and then SPL 9, which I was like, yeah, how are we ever going to live up to SPL 8? And in a way, it didn't, but in another way, it did. Like, it obviously wasn't the same. You know, you can't force that kind of thing to repeat. But in another way, we had a really great group of guys that, you know, had a similar yet different dynamic. Like, we brought Jirachi on board. We had Pearl. We had Pac, who I didn't know but ended up being great. We had Gondra, who didn't speak English very well.
He speaks way better English now.
Gondra's English now is great, but back then it was like, you know that
bad.
reminds me, Ojama and McMegan's English used to be horrible. So, like, whenever we would get them on ladder and, you know, we would crit them or whatever, they would start, you know, speaking in horrible English and, you know, putting space before their punctuation like they do in French and other stuff like that. But, yeah, and sometimes I'll go back and I'll find an old post by McMegan with his horrible English and I'll Necro-like it just to fuck with him. And he'll message me like, okay, dude, I get it. I speak English fine now. Leave me the fuck alone. But Gondra, poor Gondra, who was also just a kid, some stuff probably shouldn't repeat now because, you know, I value the channel.
These times, man.
But at the same time, we would mess with him a lot, and he would, you know, sometimes he would just be like this innocent little kid, and then other times he would go on Urban Dictionary and find a response and just fire it off and just spit acid right back at us. So, actually, now that I think about it, I don't think we can say anything he used to say.
No,
it was all in good fun.
Not.
I promise. We weren't bullies. And he, of course, gave as good as he got. So, but it was really funny. And we would, of course, mess with anyone who lost, which was, in a way, that was really good motivation. You know, Obi's team in Snake 2, I think they stole that because they saw how it worked for us in the World Cup right before it. And they stole it, and it worked just as well. So it turns out when you have teammates who are willing to make fun of you for a loss, then it's really good motivation to play your best.
Yeah, because you don't want to hear these dudes,
right? Especially because if some guy with a bad record wins that week and you lose, suddenly he has the upper hand on you. Like, you can say 3-6 or whatever, and he's like, yeah, but you just lost to insert this joker here. So it was obviously fun, but there's nothing worse than a dead team, chat. And an active team, I will take an active team that's pretty good over a dead team that's supposedly elite every single time. Because it really helps. When everyone's on the same page and wants to win, you know, just likes to hang out with each other, then yeah. I mean, SPL 9, we had a lot of disasters and came within one game of winning it, which, by the way, was on my birthday, and TDK got froze. I know he dodged a lava plume burn. I know. But he got fucking frozen on the one fucking turn. Oh, man. It still bites. Happy birthday to me.
None other. By none other.
The freeze man himself. I mean, every time I mention that to him, he'll be like, yeah, I didn't burn lava plume. It's like,
so
you freeze with ice beam? You know, I don't know.
Dude, yeah, that tour was really crazy because like there was like a lot of drama towards the end.
There were ups and downs.
You remember that
every
debacle?
Single week.
Ooh, yeah, but it just always felt like it was meant to keep going on.
Right?
Like things just kept happening the right way.
I can't believe we went to a tiebreaker, first of all. But I can't believe we fucking lost the way we did. You know, that was the kind of series where, you know, Pokemon shows that it could have really gone either way. Because, you know, your game, you know, that one full pair on that one turn. And then the spin, yeah. Thing, and, you know, and then, you know, even before getting to the tiebreak. Anyway, you know, And there's always that one inter-season drama team against that one team you really want to fucking smack. Like at SPL 8 when we had this the fight against CBB and John Scooters. That was the fight of SPL. That we, dominated because we were the best team. And then the Scooters were like, well, we made finals before we got Mazard, and we challenged them to play for the real championship of SPLA several times, and they backed out every time because they knew we would smack them just like we smacked them in the regular season.
I think we spotted them 3 games in the regular season, too.
We did. We started off 0-3, and then we won 8-4 or something ridiculous. It was great.
Yeah. We remember come back.
Sorry.
The Falcons come back on that Sunday that we're down.
I focused so much on the team camaraderie aspect of SPL 8. I forgot that we fucking had all those ridiculous things because we had qualified by week 5 pretty much, which was amazing. And then we faced the Falcons. And we were dicking around, and we were down 1-5, and then we come back and win 6 straight games to win the week. They must have felt so bad. Man. Jesus Christ. Can you imagine blowing a 5-1 lead? Not even getting a tie.
One day.
All in one day. All in the span of like 3 hours. I like that one a lot. Especially because that was the week I was playing SM Ubers. And I played Lacus Klein. Still one of my favorite games ever. But yeah, that was a week. And then in SPL 9, then we had our feud with CBB going on again against the Cryos, who also had a sweep and some other characters, and we managed to win that too. And so yeah, I think when a team is lively, then it really does correlate well with actual success. Because every team I've been on that didn't do so well, yeah, you could say the talent wasn't there, but I've never been on a team that didn't do well that really liked hanging out together. So,
yeah, you just play differently when I don't know. It's just a different level of comfort, especially when like everyone's active and there's times where we're not taking the whole thing too serious outside of the game. Just hanging out, you make fun of each other,
just dick around. Because a lot of the time, as we grow older, then we often find, we can't hang out with our real life friends all the time. So it's nice that, whenever we feel like we just hop on Discord and there are our Pokemon friends, just ready to, fuck around about whatever. Like, you can't go up to your real life. I mean, I'm sure some people do this, but you can't go up to your real life friends unless they know that you're weird. And, hey guys, check out this fucked up meme I found. So... There are some things that are only for the internet.
Exactly.
So, yeah, and there have been other great tournaments, but that has been a long winded history of my favorite memories. Yeah, mostly just being involved with other people for the most part. Because the people make the game, for better or worse.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I guess we can transition to the next question and kind of, since we're still in the competitive sense, kind of talk about like, I think something that we've talked about before is that like a lot of guys have like the talent and the skill to be really good, but I think consistency is really hard for a lot of people. And I think that's kind of what separates you guys, I think even the viewers kind of know what group of people we're talking about, but what skills do you value in a player?
So it's weird because I had my values instilled in me very strictly, first by reading Goki talk about them, and then Ace Matador, who also believed in them really strongly. And it was basically like solid fundamentals. Like, first of all, I remember one time I was considering counter teaming a guy for a tournament because I was very confident in the team he was going to bring, that I knew the team he was going to bring. And he ended up bringing it, but, I was testing with Ace Matador. He's like, why the fuck are you counter-teaming him? Do you really think you're so much worse than this guy that you have to counter-team him to even have a shot? So basically the fundamentals of what I think makes a player good are consistency. So, winning a lot against good players over a long period of time. Because Pokemon is a streaky game. I'm not just talking about luck, although that certainly plays a part, but... some people have streaks and they have a really hot tournament and then they shit the bed for 5 tournaments in a row. So consistency, I'm looking not for the guy who has really high highs and then a bunch of really low lows, but a guy who can find that high and, maintain it, within reason. I know this is Pokemon. There are a lot of factors, but as we know from the success of certain players, then there is a way to be consistent. I do value that. So not just winning consistently, but I'm also a big believer in playing the game right. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that certain strategies are cheap. I would never say, don't bring Scar and Bliss because it's cheap. If you bring Scar and Bliss to a game when I say, come on, let's just have fun, and it's not for a tournament, then you're being a dick. But, in a tournament, anything goes. So, baton pass, screens, whatever cheap thing is out there, then, go nuts. However, I value, personally for me, in terms of, you can't argue with results, obviously. But in terms of actual Pokemon skill, then I value people who don't leave things up to matchup and show an ability to play the game the right way. So I'm not saying never take a risk or never keep your Pokemon in against something that can KO it or shit like that. But I value understanding the game state and risk versus reward and knowing what needs to be done. So, what doesn't impress me is, prep is important. I'll never say it's not. But you can't get so bogged down in prep that suddenly you're like, all right, if he brings this, I have a 95-5 matchup. And if he brings this thing I'm not expecting, it's the opposite. I believe in myself to win whatever game. I can... because whenever I've tested out Gliscor Pass or whatever on the ladder in the past, then, some games I'll win and it was like, well, that was automatic. And then other games I'll be like, well, what was that guy's team so good or was his play so good I never would have beaten him that I had to resort to this? So I like people who bring good teams. This can be a lot. A hyper offense could be a good team. I don't think everything hard to beat is necessarily cheese. But they have to, I would say, good teams overall that can handle the metagame, that don't go matchup fishing and praying to God that their opponent will not bring some top metagame threat that they very feasibly could. I don't really like that. I recognize in more volatile metagames, then it's sometimes harder to avoid, sometimes impossible to avoid, especially if you're in current Gen OU and there's a lot of stuff that's probably going to get banned running around. There, I get it. But I'm talking in early generations of OU, in Gen 3 in particular, because I do a lot of Gen 3 videos. I sometimes have people tell me, because they see other guys go, oh, I knew he would never bring, Salamence, because he never uses it. And I don't believe in that. First of all, Salamence is a top-tier OU Pokemon. You don't know why he hasn't used it in the past. He could very well pop it up. And are you really willing to risk a matchup on your opponent not bringing a top-tier OU Pokemon? Do you need that advantage? Are you so unconfident in your... I realize I'm posing the questions in a very one-sided confrontational manner, but this is how I see it, because I don't want to, hope and pray that my opponent won't bring something, because that feeling of helplessness is awful. Oh, he brought Salamence. Well, guess I'm fucked. No, you can't have that. You gotta bring teams that can handle the metagame, especially in the early generations. Generations 1 through 6, I would argue. I don't know as much about the two most recent, but I would argue 1 through 6, it is absolutely feasible to cover the metagame to a reasonable degree. And obviously, that limits your pool of Pokemon if you're not willing to cut corners. And that's why sometimes I've gotten criticized for using the same teams. Well, I like covering the metagame, which I know we always want to say, I want to switch it up. I want to be diverse in terms of what teams I'm bringing. But, do you want to be diverse or do you want to cover the metagame? Not that you can't do both, but there comes a point where, being diverse just for the sake of it is not going to get you anywhere. Prep is a complicated thing. It's multifaceted. Maybe I could do a video on how to do prep, or how I would personally do prep, but I don't think there's any right way. But what I don't, because some people like to cut corners all the time and they win a lot, so more power to them. But I prefer the consistency approach. If a team doesn't work more than if a team doesn't work once it's lost its surprise factor, I don't think it's a good team. So I think, and if a team is like blatantly weak to something big in the metagame, or several things in the metagame, then I mean, obviously there are cases for niche teams that try to, like, let's take my team with Skarm, Doug, Rotom, Latias, T-Tar, Clefable, with the Doug, Scarftar, Scarf, Rotom. That team is not going to traditionally counter a ton of Pokemon, but it still handles the metagame, which is, I think, different from, hoping you don't face CB Swampert or something. So, I mean, it's hard. I mean, team building is not easy. So I really appreciate it, and I value it when someone brings a good team that covers the metagame. And I value team building highly, and that's why I value people who build their own teams, or are at least involved in the building of their own teams. I know a lot of people like to collaborate, and I think that's fine, but I don't enjoy it when I see someone succeeding because someone else gave them a team and they're just coasting. Because a team, like, no one would deny that prep and the team you have is important. It shapes every aspect of a battle. So when someone else is doing that part of the work for you, then that goes a long way. And it's just, I don't really like the dichotomy of builders and pilots. I remember early Oris when when team building became some sort of special skill with TDK and guys like that. I like to give them a hard time for that, but nowadays you have pilots. This guy doesn't build his team, but he's a great pilot. And sure, I'd like to have that guy on my SPL team if he's a good pilot, if he's going to win games, and he'll use what I tell him to use if he doesn't really have preferences. But in terms of what I value, like, at a high level, then I think that's what separates people who are able to build their own teams, people who are able to advance the game and the metagame with the teams they're making. Of course, I don't just value teams as much as it would seem like that, but playing, of course. And the playing thing is kind of like an extension. The ideas I have about playing are an extension of how I feel about team building. Smart risk versus reward. So nowadays, I know that Blunder, and I'm not shitting on Blunder for this, by the way. I know that Blunder in his lives likes to make flashy, ballsy plays, and because they look good on YouTube and they're fun to make. And on ladder, then who really gives a shit? Because it doesn't work. You just call your opponent an idiot and you move on. But that's not a consistent way to play. Sure, sometimes you're going to catch someone off guard, but Jamvad had a great way of putting it, in terms of technique, like the way you shoot a basketball. You can if you have the good technique, you might miss some shots, but on average, you're going to make a lot more because you're doing it the right way. So, and if you're doing it the wrong way, then you'll make a few, but you'll never be consistent at it. So if you want to, make huge predicts and just go balls out every turn, then sure, you'll catch some people off guard, but if you want to be consistent, which is really the mark of skill, I mean, there's skill, but if you can't demonstrate it consistently, then you're just having flashes of it. So because you're never going to be consistent, no matter how good you think you are at predicting, you are always going to run into one guy who's going to make you look stupid if that's all you do. I mean, you can be let's say the linear curve in advance. He is incredible at reading people. And there are some people who make him look dumb on occasion. I mean, it happens less for him, but it still happens. Or Tamahome is another great example. So, and that's why if you rely purely on reading people, you will never be consistent. Human psychology is not an exact science. So as much as you think, I'm in this guy's head and I'm going to read everything he's going to do, sometimes you're going to be right. But if you rely on that every single time, it's never going to be as consistent. And I like to have as much control of the game in my hands as possible. So both in my team, being able to cover everything in the game, or as much as I can within reason, and both in playing. I can be absolutely certain that a guy is going to make this play or that play, but I look at the state of the game and the teams, because there's nothing, let's say that, your opponent is Soulwind, You know, Solwind is an incredible player, top 5 all time. You know, top 6 if you're being really stingy. But Tyranitar, he has got a Tyranitar out against your Zapdos. And suddenly you're thinking, oh my god, he's going to Choice Band, Rock Slide, and Focus Punch, and he's going to switch to Scarm and Spike in the same turn. There's no way anyone can do those two things in the same turn. And that's why I try to operate within what I know to be certain. So, fact of the matter is, this T-Tar will not outspeed my Zapdos. That kind of thing. So, in terms of where that comes to do regarding prediction, then sometimes you're going to have to predict, of course. But you have to have a good sense of risk versus reward. Like, here's an easy example. If your Zapdos is the only thing keeping you from getting run over by Suicune, are you leaving it in on a T-Tar? No, never. Because as certain as you can be, as absolutely goddamn certain as you can be, there's no way he Rock Slides here. What if he does? Was it worth it? Was the reward of him, switching to whatever, was that worth risking the entire game? It isn't. I really don't think it is. And if that makes you predictable, then, sure. So you can't be predictable in your play. You got to mix it up sometimes. But there's a difference between mixing it up and being unpredictable and just being plain stupid. You have to understand and value your Pokemon. This actually is something a lot of people struggle with, and is why I'm going to make a video on it in the future. But it's that kind of thing. I value players who are smart, who don't get caught up, because I know how tempting it is. Stay in, just predict him to predict, and make him look dumb. It's so tempting, but the state of the game is more important. And no matter how certain you are he won't Rock Slide, why risk it? If the reward is huge, if the reward is similar to the risk, then sure. Like, or even then, that would have to be seriously skewed in that Zapdos, Tyranitar, Suicune triangle example. Because, let's say Zapdos dies, Suicune automatically wins the game. Never, ever, ever, ever risk it. Even if you're certain he's going to double switch to Suicune and, actually die to the Thunderbolt, it's just not worth it because he just could use Rock Slide. And as perfect a psychologist as you think you are, it's never going to work every time. So you have to, obviously sometimes you're going to have to take risks, but in a nutshell, consistency in team building and playing, and having good risk versus reward in both as well. So, and understanding the state of the game, like if you are behind in a game, I always appreciate, this is something Goki said that stuck with me when I was young. He's like, what doesn't impress me is getting a good team matchup and blowing someone out. It's getting a worse team matchup and fighting through it. That is impressive. And that and the stuff I just yammered about. So I think those would be it. And especially team building, because if someone else does the work for you, then you can be a great player, but you did not contribute entirely to that win. So I'll give one final example of why I feel so strongly about that. In the modern gens, let's say Oris, because that's the one I'm best at, then there are lots of big, strong breakers. Big choiced Pokemon that come in off a Volt Switch or a U-turn, and suddenly they're about to KO or 2 KO something. So I remember a tournament game from about 4 years ago where Choice Specs Hydreigon popped up. And Hydreigon just dark pulsed the hell out of the other guy's entire team. He couldn't stop it. Rotom came in and Volt switched, and the guy was forced to go to his Rotom counter, and Hydreigon came in, and bam. Or the same with Nidoking. However, the players involved, they did not have the idea, hey, maybe they had the idea Hydreigon, Nidoking, maybe, but even if that, then someone else built that team for him and allowed it to function like that. So obviously they deserve credit for playing the game and winning it, and obviously I'm not saying everyone who's ever built a team has done it entirely solo either, but I think there's a big difference between, and it's clear to see when someone else is doing the teamwork for you as opposed to you being involved in it. And wow, that was really long. But yeah, so that's how I feel about it.
And I was, as you were answering, I was kind of thinking about how you were talking about pilots. And I think that kind of ties into, we're talking about you're drafting and you're thinking about the value of a player. Mm-hmm. Obviously guys really good at the piloting part, but No, it's all based on value in terms of that.
Yeah, like if
Um,
you get a guy like that, you're gonna have to get someone else to cover the team aspect for him. Like that's why I think I'm a good manager. In addition to me being a very nice, sunny presence to be around, who never screams at all. Um,
Even when people lose,
yeah,
even
yeah.
when people
Even when
lose.
people lose because they played horribly, I'm just a bucket of sunshine. I gotta work on that. But yeah, one reason I think I'm a good manager is because I can help people with their teams in a lot of generations. One, I leave that to more experienced players, but 2 through 6, whatever you need, I'm helpful. And in general, I just have a good eye for stuff like, hey, you need stealth rock on your team or stuff like that. So, but in terms of tiers, then cover 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 5 generations I can help out a lot in. So if we get a bunch of guys who, this is not me giving anything away, of course, but um, then this is shit. Sorry, I just switched tabs because I had to change the music. So if we get a bunch of guys, we don't have to get someone else who can help out in the team building department for those generations because I know that I can cover that for the most part. As long as I draft someone who knows the tier and isn't just feed me teams. I don't like that. But as long as they're engaged and involved and hey, I think this is good, and I'll be like, all right, let's do something. Let's work with that. But at the same time, if I get a doubles player, then we would need someone else to help out with doubles, so they're not just riding solo. So, yeah, so that's where the value comes in. Like, especially with the whole builder thing nowadays, you would get a guy when I was starting out, you would never get a guy who just built teams and sat on the sidelines. And nowadays, it's like, yeah, of course, we need a guy like that. He's going to feed teams to our starting player. So that's an interesting way of looking at how the game has evolved, and it's evolved in a lot of ways, but that one is one of the more interesting to me.
Yeah, and I guess tying into that, who would you say are like the guys that you've paid the most attention to, or you consider a favorite? Whether that be, I mean, we could and just bring up some from both past and today.
So in the past, the guys who I valued were like the big names back then. The obvious answers from Gen 4: Earthworm, Goki, Husk. They were head and shoulders above pretty much everyone. But I say head and shoulders, but not far behind them was a humongous list of other incredible players. I mean, you had Atticus, Loki, Zach91, Deep Thought, Ace Matador, Fulgorio, Blue Wind, Frankie. I could list names all day, and they would fall on deaf ears for a lot of people. But for those who are around, they'll remember. I mean, guys like Eternal. Like Eternal wasn't even a big deal, quote unquote, back then, and he was a great player. So there were a lot of names I looked up to. If anyone's interested, then you can go on the Smogan YouTube channel and go through all the old Smogan tours from the shoddy days. I ate those up. But yeah, the big ones were Earthworm, Goki, Husk. Cause he was very domineering presence. He really understood the game because players used to post RMTs all the time. Nowadays, you'll get like team dumps in various subforms. But back then, you had RMTs everywhere, and I could tell from the way Husk wrote about the game, he really understood it. And I took a lot from that. And from the way Earthworm played, the very controlled way he played the game, then I took a lot from that as well. And then the guys I came up with alongside, who are both past and present, McMegan and Ojama are the big ones. And Solwind came a little... I mean, he came up alongside us, but he became known a little after. But, Solwind, of course, he's been probably the most consistent player in Smogan history. He's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, in a game as volatile as this, then I mean, there are some names that come close. Like ABR has to be looked at for his consistency. But, Solwind is just... I don't know how he does it. I mean, I want to rip my head off every other day, and he just keeps going and putting up incredible results in literally every single tournament he plays. And I don't misuse the word literally there. So, he's
They're
a big one
always
there.
going hard.
Yeah.
They're always falling in tournament. You can almost, those are kind of those type of guys where like you can kind of say like it's going to be them or the field. Like you can always kind of shoot it to go pretty far in something.
Yeah, he was just astonishing. Yeah, there were in the past. In the present, I'm not really as well acquainted with the modern OU guys, except I gotta say, Empo is the real deal. That guy is great. I remember he was this annoying, or not annoying. He was this little Italian kid who messaged me a couple times, and I talked with him because he helped me test Oris in Smoke and Tour, and I kept telling people. For all my bad managing decisions, sometimes I do get it right. Sometimes I'm completely correct. And about Empo, I was right. And I was like, this guy's legit in Oris and Sun and Moon, and he's been tearing it up in those and Sword and Shield. I like to say I was the first to see the light. But yeah, I don't know too much about modern OU, but Empo is... I'm really glad that guy succeeds. He is everything a modern-day OU player should be. He is incredible. I also really... Flaming Victini, he has some habits, of being famously difficult to schedule with. But as a player, that guy is... He is stone cold. Oh, of course, I'm a big fan of Legendary Dave himself, but... Flaming Victini was. I have to give a shout out to Legendary Dave, who gave me a chance on East and let me prove myself. Great guy, and he beat the hell out of me in my second SPL game ever, actually, with the Spadef Calm Mind Celebi. But back to who the hell was I talking about? Oh, Flaming Victini. Yeah, very, very methodical. He has all the stuff I value. He builds his own teams. He gets the game. He plays the right way. And I will never forget when US East was on the verge of elimination in World Cup 2016 semis, and this motherfucker brings a substitute Calm Mind Kabalion. I was like, I can't believe this is the way we go out. I cannot fucking believe it. And he wins. And the Kabalion did stuff. So that... Yeah, I mean, he had a great career. He won his individual trophy. But in recent months, but I really liked him as far as a more modern presence. Oh, and Ben Gay, as far as modern guys go, that guy is insane. In terms of the teams he pulls out. I mean, I don't think all of them work. Obviously, that would be insane if it did. I mean, most of my teams don't work, but the way he constantly is so creative is crazy to me. So I give him a lot of props. Became a really great player as well. Yeah, those are like the more modern, stereotypical current Gen OU guys I can think of. Because ABR has become more of an all-Gen OU guy. ABR, of course, as well. But Ben Gay, to me, is just like... He's a very singular presence. So him and Empo and those guys. So those are the more modern guys. In contrast with my older influences. So an underappreciated guy I always thought was Stathicus. In Gen 4, he had this guide to hyper offense, which like really taught me about the style. And talk about understanding the game. He kept talking about not switching ever, and I was like, wait, that's what competitive Pokemon is built around. How? Yeah, and of course, guys like Great Astard and CTC. Incredible minds for the game, and Blue and CBB as well. So, I mean, there are a lot of players to admire if you care about good Pokemon. So, those are just some of them. But those are the biggest ones, I would say. And to this day, Earthworm is probably my favorite player of all time.
Okay, yeah. Thinking about some of those names too. It's kind of like since we've kind of been around so long, it's kind of crazy that. It's like a new wave of names now.
Yeah, people
like
it blows my mind that nowadays you have to justify Earthworm as being one of the best ever. I mean, I know it's been 10 years and all, but like to me that is just like that is the Pokemon version of sacrilege, pretty much. Yeah, back then, remember on like the old Gen 4 ladder where you would get matched up with a big name and like suddenly all his friends come in and you're like, oh fuck, I gotta put on a show. Like remember this one time I played IPL on the ladder and I was shitting myself the whole time.
He was a problem.
fucking IPL was one of the most. You want to talk about pure Pokemon talent? Like a lot of people say Tsung was the most purely talented Pokemon player ever. I don't know about that. I think Tsung was incredibly good, but I don't, in terms of pure skill, I think him and Linear are up there. But imperfect luck, he continues to blow my mind, especially because he was doing it so long ago. I mean, talk about being ahead of the curve. IPL was like earthworm tier of like, I understand the game better than you, and that's why I'm going to thrash the fuck out of you. Yeah, he was incredible. I should have mentioned him as well. There's just so many names. But yeah, and he was across and arguably I would say IPL was even more impressive than Earthworm at the time, because during the Gen 4 period, most people just focused on Gen 4, but whereas nowadays it's never been more inclusive to every single generation. But IPL was a legend across multiple generations effortlessly, and he influenced the hell out of them too, and Husk as well. So yeah, those guys were just absolute monsters. And I have a habit of over defending the past, and that's because I see a lot of people overly shit on the past without having been around for it. And I've read up on competitive Pokemon history for before my time, and I've put it in context, and I get it. And, people like to say modern day is the only thing that ever exists and matters. And, I don't like the idea of there being an expiration date on when you can be considered good. Sure, other people become better at the game, right? Like Hank Aaron was a better hitter than Babe Ruth, obviously. But that doesn't mean that Babe Ruth still isn't one of the best ever. So it's a similar idea. I mean, sometimes I go back and I look at some of these old games. Like one of my favorite battles ever is G80 versus Goofball from one of the early Battle of the Weeks. It's also on the Smogan YouTube channel. And, watching some of the plays these guys make, and I was like, I don't know about this whole thing where everyone before 20, insert whatever year you prefer, was this idiot who didn't understand the game at all. Absolutely the opposite. So yeah, I try to give the past a fair shake. I would in no way want to diminish the achievements of the modern day. I mean, what Empo does in particular is astonishing. And ABR, of course, and Bengay and Solwind, I mean, Jesus Christ. And it's just going to keep getting better and better and better as it has over the last couple of years, and that's a good thing. But that doesn't mean that, in the past, then players weren't doing incredible things as well. And part of the reason that we are able to take so many things for granted is because of what the players that came before us did. And they built that foundation, and we learned from it. And, then years go by and we forget it, and then we say, oh, by the way, the guy that invented this, yeah, he sucked. His time didn't count. But, so I try to make it as fair as possible.
I think it's all about, I think everyone's always going to most strongly represent the era in which they came from and the people they watched.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be a time where, years from now, they're going to be saying that, you guys are,
Yeah, I mean, that already happens. I mean...
they probably say about you now.
And I can't even debate them all the time because they're not even that wrong. I mean, jokes aside, I mean, there was a guy, this blew my mind. Ojama was incredible for a million reasons, especially because when he was considered this old gen guy, he got into Sun and Moon when it was the main metagame, and he crushed it. He dominated it. He lost the finals of OLT to an alt. He very easily could have been the second player to 3 trophies, and 3 individual trophies. And he was an incredible Sun and Moon player, was the main gen. And there was a guy calling him washed up. So, people are always going to, I get it. Not everyone is like me. Not everyone dorks out over competitive Pokemon historical accuracy. I get it. But sometimes the opposite is so mind-boggling that, calling Ojama washed up when he's one of the best Sun and Moon players, so it made me realize you can't debate everyone. You will never be able to please everyone. As much as that idea irritates me, then you gotta take things with a grain of salt sometimes, because people are gonna be biased. I think that's fine. Someone is always gonna say, well, the most recent era is the most impressive because competitions have never been harder. And I'll be like, you know what, that's fair, you can think that, but I think the fundamentals back then were really strong, in some ways stronger. Of course, some other things were weaker, but part of the reason everything is better now is because of those then, so give them a fair shake. And, looking for a reasonable debate on the internet is like looking for water in a desert. But, sometimes you get one.
Totally. So, so throughout all these years, what would you say? Some of your favorite battles throughout this time, and I mean, you can either go back to your own, we can go to someone else's. What would you say are the ones that just really stand out for you?
Boy, I'm glad you asked, because I have 5 of mine ready here, and I'll put them on the screen now. First, I'll mention some of the other tournament games that have left an impact on me briefly. Earthworm. This is you're gonna have to do some digging if you want to look this up, but I really recommend it. It's a war story, so it's not just a text log; it's a war story with some guy commentating over it. It's just Google War Story Archive Smogan and you'll find it. And it's Love Destiny versus Earthworm. The stakes aren't very high. It's just a suspect battle, but it is absolutely incredible. It was a Salaman suspect ladder, so a lot of new things were being tried out, and the battle was just absolutely astonishing. That one left I would say one of the biggest marks on me ever. The Earthworm versus Goki Battle of the Week that I recreated on my channel, that was an absolutely huge one. Seeing Goki pull off a comeback like that, it wasn't like he just popped off some broken sweeper and, reversed a game he should have lost, but, that planned comeback where you don't see it coming, but he's planning it over several turns, and then he finally puts it in motion. That was unbelievable. Earthworm's in all these battles. Earthworm versus Husk for the World Cup tiebreaker. Earthworm had a pretty good matchup, but the way he played it, very safe, knowing what he could and couldn't afford. I thought it was clinical. And finally, one more for the modern age and replays. I gotta say that TDK versus ABR from SPL 8, or no, SPL 9, not the tiebreak, but their finals game was absolutely incredible. There was a monstrous late game playing from ABR at the end, but and TDK, he came just barely short. But early game, TDK was playing incredibly well, and he got a really, really nasty high jump kick with his Metacham, and he played back from it and got himself into a winning position. I thought that game was really, really strong on both sides. I really loved it. I might do it on the channel in the future. And finally, one more. Actually, no, I'm going to keep those secret because I plan to do them on the channel. But I'll just finish off by saying G80 versus Goofball, the advanced battle of the week that I mentioned earlier. That was a big one. So those are my non-mines. So now I decided to get 5 because usually we do Gen 1 through 5 on this channel. And I don't really have much to show from Gen 1 in tournaments, that is. And it's not as entertaining to watch, so we'll just go from Gens 2 through 6. So the first game that I'm showing now, so if you're not looking at your screen, you might want to now. This is a game I had against New Breed in SPL 8, the year of the Raiders. So the game is one of my favorites, mostly because I was really proud of the way my team executed itself. Because this was when I was a newer GSC player, and I had made a team for my teammate Piccolo in SPL 6, so 2 years prior, and just to help out. And the team worked out pretty much exactly as I wanted to. So as you're about to see in a second, then the basic idea is for Exeggutor to lead off, paralyze Zapdos, and then just not touch it, so it remains parried and can't rest off the damage. And then my Marowak can sweep, and I was really proud of this team. I was having trouble finding the right word there, because I was a new GSC player, and then Conflict, who is one of the best GSCers ever. Afterwards, he told me, "Hey, that Marowak team of yours, that's one of the best GSC teams I've seen in years. I really like it." And in an even bigger ego boost, Earthworm stole this team and used it himself in his game against Veteran in Love, and I was like, oh well, that's the holy grail. I've made it. Earthworm stole one of my teams, so yeah, there was that. Veteran's Love is another big name. So as we see in this game, which I have on fast speed, the idea is basically to para a bunch of stuff. And, you know, the game itself is not as interesting as, well, I guess seeing the power of the team work, because it's really firing on all cylinders here. Just para as much as possible, and, of course, have even more status with Body Slam, Lovely Kiss, Belly Drum, Snorlax, so Stall was not going to get in my way, because Drumlax is crazy, Lovely Kiss Drumlax is absolutely nuts. You know, throw Para on there, so you're messing with offense and Stall alike, and as we see here, Zapdos is parried, T-Tar is parried, Cloyster's going down soon, Snorlax is parried, so we'll skip ahead a little as Cloyster goes down. Machamp comes in, yada yada yada, Rock Slide. Oh, Rapid Spin is nice because Marowak doesn't heal with leftovers, and I don't have Rest Marowak. Well, Rest Marowak would run Spin anyway, but I don't have Rest Marowak because it's an offensive team, no Heal Bell. So, stuff happens, and Snorlax gets the Lovely Kiss off, so now the entire team except for Machamp is crippled. So now eventually Marowak finds its way in on Machamp, and I arguably could have timed this setup a little better, but he Swords Dances up, and unless he gets a crit, which is still not that likely, or if I miss Rock Slide, I guess, on the Paralyzed Zapdos, and he doesn't full para, then yeah, but he doesn't crit either Cross Chop, accuracy and whatnot, and Marowak cleaned up. So I was really proud of this team. I took every little thing in GSC was a milestone, because for a while I had viewed it as the ultimate competitive challenge, getting into that metagame, because it's the most skill intensive, I think. Not by miles or anything, but it still is. So, every little milestone in learning GSC was a big deal to me at the time, and to have my own team work out like that was a big deal. So, that was February 20th.
That was good.
Yeah, that was a good one. February 23rd, 2017. So
that was you had the chip on your shoulder that season. You remember the first time you really kind of.
That's because I was ranked 8th in GSC right after winning a Smogon Tour. And now, in fairness, I can't really fault anyone for it, because I had never played GSC like seriously at all before, even though I liked the tier and thought it was fun. But that was a good feeling, because I got the best GSC record that season, and I was insanely overpriced. Which is how I got the name 37, which is still a stupid price for anyone, no matter how good they are. So to be worth that much and then actually have a good record was a good feeling. Yeah, so then we're moving on to July 5th, 2017. This was for the first Callus Cup. I'm Autumn Leaves. That was a name I like to use a lot. And my opponent is Veteran in Love. So this is the first Invitational Advanced Tournament. And Vil is one of the best advanced players ever, one of the best players ever, first to win 2 Smogon Tours. And to face him in an advanced tournament, a serious advanced tournament, was kind of like a dream come true, because wherever I look when I was learning about advanced by going through old stuff, it was like a unanimous. Vil is the best advanced player. Vil is the king of advanced. He created the most famous advanced team of all time in Superman. So I like this game a lot because I had developed this theorem, I guess you could call it, of switching Gengar into Tyranitar on the first turn against my own Tyranitar, because at the time, with the way movesets were, if it was a special Tar, it would switch out of my Tar, and it would switch into something like a Skarm or a Swampert, which Gengar would have a good matchup against. And if it was a physical Tar, then it could attack with a Banded Earthquake, and Gengar would come in for free and fire off a Will-O-Wisp without worrying about a Pursuit Tar. So, worked out in that way really nicely. And this was a team I was using. I think M-Dragon had a similar one with my T-Wave, Fire Blast, Blissey. It was just a solid, bulky offense team. And God, I don't think that was worth it. But actually, no, it was, because now my Gengar has the upper hand. But yeah, I really liked my Will-O-Wisping Boomgar as it takes down P2. Zapdos is just such a ridiculous threat. And yeah, I really liked it. I mean, there are so many games I've had over the years that have been so great that I'm always going to be leaving off something. But I really like this one, just for the stakes, the opponent with those stakes, and the way my team worked out, especially with that turn one move, which is not a standard move or had ever been a standard move in Advance. So I was really glad that I was showing that my own way of playing the game was legitimate and it, had some sort of value. I mean, I have this constant thing of constantly feeling like I need to prove something. So people like CL have told me, like, what more do you need to prove? Arrogant as that sounds, at a point it does become seriously unhealthy. But the point being that it was nice to prove that something like that something that I thought of that was unconventional was worthwhile, and it worked out really well. So eventually Gengar, I think, booms, and then I'd win with Starmie. So, or no, I win with Doug. So yeah, that was a good one. All right, Gen 4. So 2 down, 3 to go. This is a game against Jimmy Turtwig for Smogon Tour 22 semifinals. It was the first game of the series, and to this day, it might still be my favorite DPP game ever. I won't really go into the nitty-gritty of the game, instead just the team. So, earlier I said that I sometimes get, a bad rap for using the same thing over and over again, and I don't think that's entirely true or accurate, although in the past I, have needed to change it up a little more. But for the most part, I think it's not too well-deserved a rap. Anyway, point being that I was always trying to be, in situations like this where the trophy was on the line, or getting to the finals was on the line, then I was valuing, I was being really careful about my team choices. So I, was constantly thinking about my replays and how my opponent would try to handle what I normally like to use, and I would stress over it constantly. And then I faced Jimmy, and I like Jimmy because his style is very no-nonsense. It was actually very similar to mine, I thought. And, oh, look, I made a good play there. That doesn't happen often. So I knew he's not a counter-teamy kind of guy. So I could just make a good overall team and it would work. And that's exactly what I did. I didn't concern myself with his usage. I knew he just used good, standard, solid overall teams. He could throw in a surprise, but he wasn't going to be, running some insane type of hyper offense that I needed to rearrange my whole style to get around. So I built this team, which has 2 fire types, both Infernape and Heatran, and sure, it's got some defensive holes, but the sheer offensive pressure of 2 fire types alongside a choice band Tyranitar was just nuts, and I was really glad it worked out. And plus, this is November 23rd, 2016, so Scarf Tran had been the standard Heatran set for a long time, and at the time I even thought, it's hard to fit any Heatran set other than Scarf on a team. But, with this team, I threw on 4 attacks, and he brought specially defensive, and both Heatran sets were on full display for everything good about these Heatran sets was fully on display here in this game. I thought that was really great. So we're going to fast forward a little as he spins, Whirlwind to Zapdos, and CB-Tar is always a monster as he just rips through everything. And a Scarf Flygon, the Eternal Threat as well. So I ended up making some... I thought, I normally don't brag about my plays too often, but I was really proud of this one, especially because, not that I'm trying to prove anything to people who probably wouldn't care if I won every tournament under the sun, but sometimes it's still a good feeling, It is good to appreciate yourself at times. Of course, you don't want to do nothing but appreciate yourself, because then you become a psycho like me. But in this one-on-one, then I'm threatening the Starmie because it's Pasho Heatran with HP Grass. And, Flygon will live an HP Grass, but it won't live a Fire Blast, because Fire Blast is stronger, because 120 plus Stab is 180, so divided by 2 is 90. And Um, or I think even if you do it the other way, then I think it's still fine because 120 divided by 2, 60, plus 1 point, or times 1.5 is 90. So it'll outdamage hidden power by 20 base power. So Flygon won't live that, and to Fire Blast a Starmie with a Heatran to kill Flygon, I thought was great. And this is a modest Heatran, and people like to say that speed is king, and I always appreciate it when power reminds them that it is important too. There's my fast Scarm getting the crucial spike to wear Starmie down into Infernape range, and then Scarf Infernape, another favorite, because CL kept telling me that Scarf Ape was great that entire year, and then I was like, you know what, I might try it on this team, because the sets were up for grabs, but I liked it, and it cleaned up, and God, CBTAR tanks the hit. So I really love this game. I was actually a very early fan of Jimmy Turtwig. I was a believer. I demanded we get him for the Raiders, and he was great. And so, for all my managing goofs, sometimes I have a good idea. Oh, that SPL, I also demanded we get Ray, and he was like 8K, and he went 10-0. So I'm a good drafter when I'm not managing. All right, so 2 more.
Wait a minute.
Actually, I'm glad I mentioned Ray because my next game is Black and White from June 30th, 2016, and it is a World Cup game, round 1, against the one and only Ray Scarface. So I like this game for a couple of reasons. Well, at the time, I was using a ton of standard Spikes teams because they're the strongest in Black and White, and I had been dicking around with this offense team that Jirachi gave me. This is the only one of these replays where I do not... Actually, no, it's 2 of the 5. Gen 4, I use my own... Yeah, okay, well. I tweaked it, and... Yeah, no, it's Jirachi's team. But yeah, I had been dicking around with this on ladder on my main, just... So I wasn't exactly hiding it. And I was facing... Ray was on US Central this year, so Finchinator was his teammate, and I was sure he was going to try hard the hell out of it, and, scout my laddering team or whatever, but I was like, you know what, I like this team so much, I'm so confident in it, I've been playing it so well that I'm just going to use it. So I liked it for that reason, and I liked it for the reason that on paper, this was a horrible matchup, in that, first of all, Mew is goddamn devastating, Latios is going to get messed up by Keldeo, and then Keldeo is going to mess me up. And worst of all, he's got a Scarf Chomp. Now, around this time, I had been spamming the living bejesus out of Scarf Garchomp. It was just incredible. It cleaned up every single goddamn team. And the kind of team I was using here was prime Garchomp food. Whenever I used Scarf Chomp and I saw a team like this, I was like, all right, I pretty much win. Because it was so easy to clean up with it. So I was, fearing everything on Ray's team. So I, especially the Mew, which is kind of a problem. So looking into the game, then I get up rocks and stuff, and I forced the Mew to soft boiled. My plan was originally Icy Wind, so I could maybe trap it with CB Tar, and because it'd be slower. But I figured, maybe I'd try that again later because CB Tar's not too useful for anything else. And then eventually I get Latios in here, and I'm like, well, all right, he's fearing Trick, and I'm just not going to let him absorb the Trick, and I Surf. And another thing I actually place a lot of importance on is the damage calc, and I can't stand it when people play super, super fast and don't use it. So, and, whoops, let me fix that. Yeah, and... because the damage calc reveals so much to you. It helps you make more informed decisions, and that's what Pokemon's all about. So, I figured out that from the damage this T-Tar took from Surf, it was not a Scarf Tar, so I didn't have to play a Crunch Pursuit guessing game, and I just stay in, and now I felt like I was in a good position. Of course, I was still terrified of Scarf Chomp, because I knew just how scary it was. So I make a fairly unnecessary switch to Jirachi there. But overall, because when Scarf Lando was the check, then it's a matter of time, so I knew I had to be really careful. But luckily, I was able to get all the momentum I needed to prevent his threats from overpowering mine, and that's why I like this game so much. In addition to the factors I mentioned already, I get a good bullet seed here. See, I should have kept the Jirachi a little healthier to slow the Mew down and get my CB Tar on it, but it works out. Now CB Tar comes in and destroys, and stuff happens, and I managed to pivot Breloom into Earthquake, and now I get a good double switch on Latios, knowing it was very, very risk-free. And Lefty's Keldeo, which I think I made that choice, so I can claim the team is entirely mine now. But instead of Expert Belt, because it helps it survive, doesn't really need the power, and it helps it against that dual chop from Garchomp in a big way. It could have been 2 KO'd otherwise. And then I make another good switch back to T-Tar. Wow, 2 in 1 game. I was really improving at that time. So then, and that's the game pretty much. So I was really proud of this one because the matchup I thought was so bad, and I still think it was, but managed to work out. So yeah. Finally, this game was not very high stakes at all, this final Oris game, but I just really liked it. It was just a regular tour game against Blunder and Oris in the regular season of Smogon Tour 22, so the date is September 3rd, 2016, and it was just a great game. It was a lot of fun. I don't remember the details because it's been a while since I watched this, but it was a really solid one, so we'll just... Actually, how many turns is it? It's a really long one. Yeah, that was a bit of a long game, so we'll just... Sorry for spoiling it, but it was a really good one. I'll put the links to these in the description. And I don't have the replay on me, but when I was forced to play Sun and Moon for the Raiders in SPL 9 for the tiebreak against Zalmog, I thought I did that one pretty well. So, especially considering I had no Sun and Moon experience prior. So those are the big ones. I know I'm missing out on a ton, obviously, because of time, but those are some of my favorites that came to mind for one reason or another. For things I valued highly, let's say.
Okay, and our second to last question would just be, we've kind of talked about some of them throughout the course of this, but that you're behind a lot of teams that have stayed in rotation for a long time. So what would you say some of your favorite teams throughout all this time, whether it be yours or someone else's? What are the ones that stand out?
In terms of other people's teams, they come to mind less quickly than my own, for obvious reasons. But I remember in Black and White, I really liked Ojama's teams because they were so similar to my own style. And I was like, oh, so all right, so I'm not crazy. Someone else likes this. And especially his his Volt Turn stuff was so meticulous and thorough that, you know, it just dominated Rainsall so hard. He was making use of bulky Starmie before anyone else. But I also really liked his semi-stall teams. And, you know, when I ended up on a team with him, he was like, oh yeah, I use Heatran on every sand team. And I was like, dude, you're speaking my language. So, other people's teams I liked, historically, God, I should have looked into this more. But historically, this doesn't come to mind as easily. I like a lot of ABR's teams. I like a lot of Solwind's teams in Black and White. You know, most teams that speak my language, which isn't necessarily defense, but I like teams that are synergistic. Not just shit thrown together, but they work together nicely. That's the mark of a really good team. TDK, of course, makes a ton of really great stuff. In fact, in this game against Blunder, then that's whose team I'm using, TDK's. He threw it at me and was like, use this, and I was like, okay. Let's see, finally, I'll mention Astamatito's advanced teams, which are incredible, and they always manage to make me look at the tier in a new light, and I was like, you've been playing this longer than I have, how? And, finally, I will say that... whoa, I'm blanking. But McMegan's teams are, and have been, really, really. I mean, okay, sometimes he goes a little too far and, you know, stinks up the joint with some stupid fucking nonsense. But when his stuff hits, it really hits, and you can tell, like, okay, he gets it. He knows what's good, and it's very precise. It is very Earthworm-like. and that you get a sense from it. He's like, I'm bringing this team because I understand the game better than you, and I'm executing it better because I understand the game better than you. I always got that sense from when he was at his peak. Like his SPL 8 black and white games against AO and DICE, for example, those were some of his best. And in every tier, then he always manages to make something that's distinctly his own. And I really appreciate that. I appreciate players whose teams have personality to them. As far as my own teams, I could be here all goddamn year talking about that. But I'll stick mostly to the advanced team I talked about in my favorite teams episode 1, the Jolteon Spikes. I really was attached to that one. The DPP teams I dedicated an entire video to those, especially the Subroost Arrow team, the bulky SD Scizor team, and the Stall team. So the Stall team being iCrawled, the T-Tar, Scarm, Nido, Clef, Rotom, Jirachi. That one, I guess if you had to pick just one, then it's that, because that one has had the most lasting metagame impact, and that I really don't see changing. You know, I mean, I think the other team, well, the Scizor team at least, that one I was really proud of because that really ushered in the era of the big 5+1 structure of bulky offense, which dominated teams, which dominated the metagame for so long. And matter of fact, my Stall team was built as a direct response to that. So it was kind of cool to influence it on both the offensive side of the spectrum, moving the metagame away from the Fortress Stall that had plagued the metagame, the Fortress Restogera stuff, into a more offensive direction, and then back another stallish direction. So there's that in black and white. Then it's been a while, but back when it was the main gen, then I was known as the main black and white stall player, which is kind of funny thinking back at it, thinking how few people will remember that. But I had a stall team which was really, really popular. We're going to look it up real quick. This one, this is from World Cup 2013 semis. And this stall team you see here, this was the standard black and white stall team. The first time I used it was with Gliscor over Hippo, but I used that against McMegan in SPL 3 semis. And I spammed the hell out of it after that, and it became standard. And yeah, there's that. And also in the RMT archive is my Hippowdon semi-stall, which brought Scarfrachi to the forefront of the metagame. That one I co-made with Funkasaurus. Advance, definitely my Celebi Scar Mag team. That one brought in the era of Protect Toxic, and Scar Mag as a whole, because there was that. I mean, we had Protect Toxic stuff before, but the Protect Toxic, the amount of Protox that this team brought in was not unprecedented, but taken to extreme, especially with Magneton facilitating it and Scar Mag becoming an entirely new thing, and the cleanup with Arrow, which I just thought was the pièce de résistance. I probably said that horribly, but I really like that one, in addition to the Jolteon stuff that I really valued and talked about before. As for GSC, then both this Marowak team and my original Jinx Golem team, that helped popularize Jinx, but that was also from SPL 8, but that was single-handedly the birth of modern GSC Golem, the Rapid Spin Roar set. Because before, some people had tried Golem because Rapid Spin, but no one had used Roar on it besides like Coolio and like PO test games. Shoutouts to him, of course. But I came up with that on my own because I wanted to fit in Golem, and I was like, I can't fit in another Rock Resist to phase Snorlax. And then I realized, well, I can just Roar with Golem, and boom, entirely new metagame as a result. So some other people have co-opted Golem, but I love it so much, and it was as big for me as anyone else. So there was that team, and I spammed the hell out of that and Golem Jinx stuff, so that helped a lot. I value that. You can look that up from Mr. 378 in World Cup, in SPL 8 and World Cup 2018, I believe. Those are the two big Jinx Golem teams. But I think the second one was more lastingly prominent because it had Gengar. but the first one was more. The first one was the first, of course, as a whole. And in Oris, there's been a couple things I really liked actually, but nothing immediately on this at the same scope of these teams I've mentioned before. So if I had to pick just one team to sum up my entire career, I guess it would be iCrawl, just because I gotta make a video for that team actually, but that's been like the biggest one over the years, because that team is already well over 3 years old and it's not slowing down at all. I mean, the metagame keeps changing to adapt to it, which is natural, but it's still good. So so there have been a lot, like my Calm Mind Pass team in Advance. I love that one too, but we're just gonna stick with that one. Oh, and of course this Fire Spam team on the screen right now, but yeah, that one too, because it's amazing.
I was just watching that part of your video where you missed the Draco on the mints and you lost.
I called it too, right? There was one of my favorite stories is that I was once talking to this girl at my school, and she was telling me about the law of attraction, where you visualize something coming into the universe and it'll happen, right? And I'm convinced that every single time I have a last second fear of a crit, it happens. I think anyway. That said, I'm not entirely sure on that theory's validity, because I spent a lot of time imagining myself in her pants, and that just never happened. So, I'm split.
All right, we'll end things with, man, what can we expect from the future for you, man? You on the YouTube thing. Heavy now.
Yeah, I recently had a revelation that I was not enjoying myself when I was killing myself for all these tournaments. So I took a step back and I started enjoying the game again. It was incredible. I was like, I don't have to quit Pokemon. I can just have fun with it again. So now, like, I'll put it this way. It used to be that if I would have like a goofy idea for DPPUU, like lead Monferno with Stealth Rock, then I would put it in my team builder, and then I would be like, this isn't helping you win those tournaments. Get that shit the fuck out of your team builder. And now I'm like, yeah, Monferno, that's fun. Let's stick it in the team builder and let it sit there. Why not? So that's one way to illustrate the difference. And it's just a lot more enjoyable. I'm not saying I'll never play again, but knowing I don't have to is really freeing. Like, next SPL, I'm definitely not playing. After that, who knows? I mean, there's a lot of time to play in college. And, with the pandemic and everything, there's, always going to be time. We're going to be fine, but there's always going to be time to play. But, if it's making me fucking miserable, then I can just walk away. And that's nice. And YouTube is, like, fun. I mean, look, when I'm laddering for 5 hours, yeah, maybe I could throw my computer out the window. But at the same time, then overall, it's a lot more fun to make videos and not have to worry about, well, I have to constantly reinvent my team so I don't get counter-teamed. It's so much more enjoyable that way. So for the future, YouTube stuff and managing in tournaments. And, I might not play in any more big tournaments anymore and just stick to the small tours, which are just fun, and that's fine. I might come back to them. Who's to say? Oh, and the big Pokemon Coliseum movie I'm working on. I'm working on that actually every day. I'm taking it very seriously. It's going to take a while because it's a big project, but fingers crossed. So, yeah, I think that's about it.
That's about it, man. Nice talking to you again, bro.
Of course, of course. And for anyone wondering, Roscoe will be back on the channel. About 10 years ago, I would ladder whenever he wanted to, and we would get in a call, and he would laugh whenever something didn't go my way, which was often. And that'll happen again, I'm sure, when I'm laddering on stream again. And I decided to load up August's Trick Room Rampardos team, and I missed 3 out of 3 head smashes. And
team
all
is
that
good.
Other stuff. Oh, that's my favorite. So
that team is good.
All right, man. All right, should we call it there?
Yeah, we can call it, man.
All right, I'll catch you guys later. Only 2 hours and 14 minutes. Wow, this is a record short video. All right, Later.
The finches, right?
Efficient as fuck, yeah.